Good morning and welcome to ASIAL's virtual industry briefing. I'm Neil McLean, ASIAL's South Australian convener. I'd like to begin by acknowledging and paying respect to the traditional custodians of the land on which we each gather today, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. To commence our presentation, I'd welcome John Gillell, ASIAL President, to say a few words.
Good morning and welcome to this ASIAL industry briefing. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Gillell and I'm the recently elected ASIAL President. I've served on the board since 2014 and as the Vice President since 2016. On behalf of the entire ASIAL board, I'd like to welcome you to this industry briefing. Over the next couple of minutes, I'd like to share with you a bit about our core themes and some of our strategies. So firstly, our core themes. At ASIAL, we have two main core themes. One is a safe and secure Australia. And the second, together, each achieves more. These two core themes will central around every discussion that we have and every publication that we do. Because we really want to promote what the private security industry is doing, and we're doing some really great stuff out there to keep our communities safe and to keep our country safe. And together, each achieves more. If you think about it, in the industry, there's over 150,000 licensed security personnel. We employ with our support staff about 180,000 people, and we contribute about $10 billion to the economy. We're much larger than the police force, we're much larger than the Australian Defence Force, and we're much larger than those two combined. That gives us a strong voice, and it gives us a strong foot forward into telling the media and telling the government what we do to keep our great nation safe. We want to promote that, we want to get the message out, and we want to get it out very strongly. Some of our strategies that you'll see, we're going to really have some really great strategies being executed over the next 12 months. First and foremost is a research paper called Security 2025. This is a research paper, the first of its kind. It's going to tell you about the industry, where we are today, where we'll be in 5 years' time, and more importantly, how every member can get to that point in 5 years' time, so we're not falling behind. We have some other great strategies. We really want to promote women in security and how we can get more females into the industry. We want to promote careers in the industry. There's a lot of great people out there, a lot of talented people that have spent their entire working career in the industry. We want to promote that, and we want to promote others to come into the industry through training, through promotions to universities and TAFEs, and through other means. You're going to see some really, really good stuff over the next 12 months. I'm going to keep this very short and sweet. If you'd like to get in contact with me, you can contact me through LinkedIn or through ASIAL. Hopefully I can meet everyone after all these lockdowns. So thank you and enjoy this industry briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your presentation, and congratulations on your recent appointment. I'd now like to introduce Jack Alpy and Julian Cartwright from Guardhouse as sponsors for this virtual briefing.
Good morning, everyone. We're delighted to be the breakfast sponsor for another ASIAL event. We've put a QR code at the bottom of each page so you guys can download a copy of our brochure at any time. For those who don't know us, my name is Jack. I also have Julian with me, and we're both co-founders of Guardhouse. We wanted to give you a little bit of an update today on where we're at as a business and some of the exciting features that we've got coming up. We launched Guardhouse in 2018, and in that time we've now partnered with 112 companies nationally who are publishing over 90,000 shifts a week and collectively have over 38,000 staff. Here's some of our partnered clients.
Our customers love our best-in-class features and workflow on employee scheduling, time and attendance, payroll and invoicing, and instant reporting, along with GPS mobile time clock, automated license checks, offered shifts, skill matching, and our rich customer portal functionality. This results in the benefits of a 62% reduction in time to build rosters and communicate shifts to staff, a 100% reduction in the time it takes to run license checks manually, a 56% reduction in payroll processing time, and a 48% reduction in invoicing generation and distribution time. The companies that choose Guardhouse see an average of 741% return on investment. We've plenty of life left in the year, and our development team are working hard to deliver some exciting functionality before the end of 2021. we'll be releasing automated compliance management, labour partner live rosters, pre-shift calls and on-shift welfare checks, and customer portal shift requests.
We're offering those who attended the breakfast this morning a 20% discount on their first year's subscription, and all our contact details are in the QR code when you scan it. Thank you, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Thank you, Jack and Julian. Your offerings and support of our industry is certainly appreciated. I'd like now to introduce Cara Pritchard and Leanne Rayner of MAS National to present on technical training funding.
Hi, my name's Cara Pritchard and I'm from MAS National in South Australia, and today I'm joined by my lovely colleague Leanne Rayner, who's from our Victorian team. We're going to talk all things apprenticeships and traineeships, but we're also going to share with you some really exciting news on a subsidy called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement Wage Subsidy. Over to you, Leanne.
Thanks, Cara. So who are MAS National and who are we? MAS National is an Australian apprenticeship support network provider, which is a mouthful. We've been delivering apprenticeship support services for 23 years, and that includes promoting training and employment pathways. So our organisation works to support industry through workforce development, and we support schools and community groups, job seekers, career changers and school leavers into meaningful employment. So the most common question we get, Cara, as you know, is what is an apprenticeship or a traineeship? So an Australian apprenticeship, which is a common phrase, it's an Australian apprenticeship is an apprenticeship or traineeship, which is a learning pathway that combines paid on-the-job training with formal study through a registered training organisation. So basically, earn as you learn. By completing an apprenticeship or traineeship, the learner gains a nationally recognised qualification as well.
You're absolutely right, Leanne. We do get asked that question all the time. And the good news is we are here to work with you to help you understand which apprenticeships and traineeships are actually available in your sector. So what are the benefits of apprenticeships and traineeships? Well, from the employer's point of view, there is funding that's available, and that is funding that we're going to go into a bit more detail about in this recording. But there is also state government initiatives that will be specific to your business. So we can actually work with you to help you understand those. That could be things like payroll tax and other incentives that are happening in particular states. It also leads to improved productivity. So if a staff member has been trained properly, they are able to undertake their work, and you will see benefits of that training in their daily work. It also leads to increased staff retention, and trained employees quite often meet legislative requirements of industry. So lots of different industries will have certain requirements where training has to be done to a certain level, and you can actually attain those, meet those levels by undertaking apprenticeships or traineeships. There are also benefits for both the apprentice or trainee. They can gain relevant training for their job role. As Leanne mentioned earlier, they achieve a nationally recognised qualification. They earn while they learn, and it does increase their loyalty because they can feel that they're being invested in as part of your business.
Absolutely, Cara. So funding, and this is one of our other common questions that we receive and something that we love to talk about. So funding for trainees and apprentices, what incentives are available to those who undertake a traineeship or an apprenticeship? So potential standard incentives. So these are the incentives that have been around all the time or have been around for years. Obviously, there's eligibility criteria, but the basics are that there's a commencement incentive, which is paid at the 6-month point, and that's around $1,500. The completion incentive, which is paid on successful completion of the traineeship or apprenticeship, which is $2,500. And as you mentioned before, Cara, there's also extra state funding as well. But in terms of the federal funding, there's also extra funding available for employers who take on school-based apprentices or trainees, or for those undertaking a qualification that's on the National Skills Shortage list. And that could also be up to an additional $4,000. So you could have your $4,000 commencement and completion and an additional $4,000 for somebody undertaking an NSNL qualification for supporting adult apprentices as well. So anyone over 21. So that's an extra incentive also.
And we can work with you to help you understand which qualifications are on that National Skills Needs list, because there are some qualifications that are relevant to your industry there.
Absolutely.
Now, without further ado, a bit of information around the boosting apprenticeship commencements. So as we all know, COVID has continued to be a challenge here in Australia, and obviously a challenge in some of the states that we work in at the moment. So out of that, the Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements Wage Subsidy was generated, and it is a subsidy that provides extra support to employers who engage new apprentices and trainees, and the support is in the form of a 12-month wage subsidy capped at $28,000 per eligible apprentice or trainee. So that it is actually per, so you could potentially take on 10 new apprentices or trainees and actually attract the subsidy for all of them. It is available to all new workers who meet primary eligibility, and we'll take you through a bit of information on that as we go through this slideshow. It also is available to existing workers who are on the trades list, and again, we'll work with you so you understand who that is specifically, or existing workers who have transitioned from casual to part-time or full-time, or from part-time to full-time to undertake the apprenticeship or traineeship. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but we will actually work through with you individually to help you understand who that is that falls into those categories. So
yeah, you're
over
right,
to you,
Cara.
Leanne.
Thanks. And I think in addition to that, I mean, this COVID incentive or the Boosting Apprenticeships Commencement Wage Subsidy is all about getting people into work or creating more permanent positions. So converting those people from casual into permanent part-time or permanent full-time positions. So
absolutely, the government are happy to support the fact that employers are actually able to provide those opportunities to the individuals, and then in return the government want to support them through that process.
Agreed. So the wage subsidy, and am I eligible, which is a common question. What is that primary eligibility that you spoke about before? So for an employer to be eligible for the Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement Wage Subsidy, the apprentice or trainee must be undertaking a Certificate 2 or higher qualification, which, as you mentioned, we can go through in more detail. And they must meet that primary eligibility. So they've either got to be a citizen, an Australian citizen or permanent resident, or a New Zealand passport holder who's been in the country for 6 months or longer. They must have appropriate employment and training arrangements that we mentioned before. And if they're an existing worker, they must meet that existing worker criteria that we mentioned just on the earlier slide. They also need to have a training contract that's formally approved by the state training authority in their state, but that's the part that we assist with. So we get that training contract done, and once it's submitted and approved, then you're hunky-dory.
So really, we're here to support you through that whole process. Now, what is classified as a new worker? So in the government's eyes for this particular program, a new worker is someone who's worked for the business less than 3 months full-time or less than 12 months part-time or casual. So there is a fairly large window there, and we can sit down with you and look at your full workforce development piece and work out who those new workers are and make sure that there is an opportunity to maximise the subsidy for them. An existing worker is someone who's been with the current employer for more than 3 months full-time or more than 12 months part-time. But as we mentioned before, there are opportunities to transition people from casual to part-time or full-time, or from part-time to full-time. And what kind of qualifications can be done through an apprenticeship or traineeship? Well, you can actually undertake a Certificate 2 through to advanced diploma qualifications. And I think a lot of the time people think apprenticeships and traineeships are entry-level qualifications and qualifications that aren't at that higher level, but there are so many different, I think it's over 500 qualifications that are available. So we can work through that with you. And in your industry, there are potential qualifications in the ICT, security, the cabling. There are also business certificates, because there are people who would be working in the offices or working in the back end to support you. And there are also leadership qualifications that are available. So we haven't actually listed all of the qualifications because there are so many of them, but we can work with you individually to work out what the appropriate qualification is for your business.
Yeah, absolutely right, Cara. And I think it's important to note that when we talk about apprenticeships and traineeships, everyone thinks about those traditional trade apprenticeships that are available, and everybody knows those trades, but it equally applies to traineeships, where it could be basically any job that you think of, there could be a traineeship connected to that.
Absolutely.
So is my business eligible for the Boosting Apprenticeships Commencement, or I'm going to call it back from now on? It's a mouthful.
Much easier.
Yeah, all businesses are eligible regardless of their size, income or geographic location. To be eligible, you need to engage an Australian apprentice or trainee anytime between the 5th of October 2020, so last year, and the 31st of March 2022. So that 12 months starts whenever your start date of your traineeship or apprenticeship commences. And your Australian apprentice or trainee needs to be undertaking that Certificate 2 or higher qualification and have a training contract that's fully approved or formally approved by the relevant state training authority. And as Cara mentioned before, we'll support you through this whole process. So if you have somebody that you're just not sure about whether they're eligible or not, or you've got a whole group of people, whether you're not sure or you're wanting to take someone on, we'll actually work with you to give you some sort of indication of what you may be eligible for.
So I guess this is a pretty important one. How much is the subsidy? Well, as we mentioned earlier, it is up to $28,000. So the wage subsidy is 50% of the Australian apprentice or trainee's gross wage paid, capped at $7,000 a quarter. So there'll be 4 different quarters, and in each of them, there is up to the $7,000 that can be claimed back. The wage subsidy is available for wages paid in a 12-month period from the commencement date, which Leanne alluded to earlier. When will the payments be made? A very common question we get asked. So as I said, they are paid quarterly in arrears, and they are directly into the employer's nominated bank account. So MAS do administer this process. We send out a claim form. We ask you to fill out the claim form and attach the wage evidence for that period of time. And then we go through and pay the claim, which I think I've just answered my next question before I even got to it. Over to you, Leanne.
Thanks, Cara. And just something to remember is that this boosting apprenticeship commencement wage subsidy is in addition to those standard incentives that we mentioned before. So it could be $28,000 wage subsidy plus the $4,000 standard incentives and plus any extra incentives that may be available through the federal government, plus any state government incentives that might be available as well. So are there any specific exclusions for back? So an employer will not be paid back or the boosting apprenticeships commencement wage subsidy where the employer is receiving any other form of Australian government wage subsidy or equivalent for that apprentice or trainee, or that the Australian apprentice or trainee is undertaking a qualification that they've already done before, basically. So even if it's an upgrade of the same qualification, they won't be able to attract the back. So long as they're doing something new, that's all fine. And then what if your apprentice or trainee cancels or suspends through the claim period? That's fine. All you need to do is let us know, and you get paid up until that date where they've cancelled. Or if they're suspended, you can pick up that payment again once they're back and working with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Leanne. Well, that brings us to the end and really what's next. So our team, as we've mentioned throughout the entire recording, we're here to support you through the process. We have staff members all across Australia who are out in their cars, available to pop into your business and sit down with you and learn about your business and learn about what your needs are, and then work out what the best workforce development plan is for you that aligns to apprenticeships and traineeships, so you're able to maximise the opportunities that are available. You'll see on the next slide mine and Leanne's details. You're more than welcome to contact us directly. We can link you with the appropriate people, and we will be online to answer your questions. So we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you, Cara and Leanne. As an industry, we need to get our heads around funding options and how we use those options for the benefit of all. If I could now introduce Dini Sulio, Commissioner Consumer and Business Services of the South Australian Government, to provide a regulator's industry update.
Hi, my name is Dini Sulio. I'm the Commissioner for Consumer Affairs and the Liquor and Gambling Commissioner in South Australia. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak today, or appear and speak today. It's a good opportunity for myself to engage with the industry, hear from you in relation to any issues that are happening in the industry, and identify areas where we can, as a regulator, assist, but to also give an update in relation to some of the things that are happening in my office. So I'll talk through some of those things today. I think everyone's sick of hearing that it is an interesting time, but from the security industry point of view, from a licensing point of view, we have seen a significant increase in applications for security agent licenses. So those people looking to work in the industry, we've gone from 1,300 in 2019 to 1,600 through last year. So 300 and 316 more people looking for licenses in the industry on a year-on-year comparison. And I think that's probably reflective of the fact that there is an increased need for security around, around hospitals and around medi-hotels and in response to COVID and supermarkets and other places. So I think we're probably seeing a bit of that happening from a guarding and crowd controlling point of view, and certainly an increase in that regard that we've seen in my office. We've had some hiccups working through processing from time to time where during lockdown or during heightened requirements for South Australian Police, the opportunity to get clearances done and also get fingerprinting done have been a bit slowed down due to their resources being stretched as well. So that seems to be back under control now. We're operating to more normal timeframes as we go through this process. So we are obviously keen to get any feedback or any issues in relation to the licensing processes and things that we can do differently to make it easier for particularly new participants trying to get in and trying to get in quickly, and for businesses who are trying to operate to make sure that they can access information and get staff on as quickly as they possibly can. So more than happy to hear any feedback or thoughts or queries in relation to how that can work in a better way. From a legislative point of view, we are trying to make sure that the legislation that currently exists both for investigation agents and security and agents and crowd controllers is contemporary, is reflective of current practices and procedures, particularly when we're dealing with things like COVID. So we are doing a bit of a assessment currently in relation to that legislation, and we will be engaging with the industry bodies to give us some feedback and identify areas where it is thought that we can do some improvements and some changes to the legislation if that's necessary. So initially we'll go through a process, do that assessment, get some feedback, and if there are areas that warrant it, we will look to do some legislative reform over the next few months just to ensure that we are allowing the industry to operate in the best way that it can, but making sure it is reflective of the way that the industry operates as it currently stands, because in a lot of circumstances, in a lot of industries, that engagement has changed in the way that you are able to engage with your customers and your workers are able to engage in doing their jobs, and we just need to make sure that the legislation allows that to happen and reflects what is happening in the industry. So it's important that we get your feedback through that process. They're the couple of things I was just going to touch on today, and then really throw it open for questions and any queries that anyone may have of me and of my office that I can help with.
Thank you, Danny. It's always great to hear your input. I'd like now to introduce Chris Delaney, ASIAL's Industrial Relations Advisor, to provide an IR industry update.
Good morning. My name is Chris Delaney. I'm ASIAL's Workplace Relations Advisor. It's hard to talk about the issues faced by employees over the last 12 months or so without using all of the cliches that are around the place. Suffice to say, these have been very challenging times. There's a lot happening in the workplace relations landscape, but today I only want to concentrate on two of the burning issues affecting employers in the security industry: mandatory vaccination and casual employment changes. The first question that we seem to be getting, and the major question from employers, is, can I direct an employee to be vaccinated against COVID-19? The short answer to that question is yes, but with a caveat, unfortunately. Essentially, you can give an employee any direction you want to give, but the employee can refuse that direction if it is unlawful or unreasonable. And in the context of COVID-19 pandemic and vaccinations, the criteria for determining lawful and unreasonable, or lawful and reasonable, will be, in all probability, in one of two areas: either government orders, public health orders, usually issued by the state, or work health and safety issues, specifically Section 19 of the Work Health and Safety Act, Commonwealth, which has in most states and territories, with the exception of Western Australia, harmonised legislation. By and large, the federal government has sidestepped the problem of vaccination or mandatory vaccination. Some public health orders have been directed with respect to nursing homes, aged care, airline workers, hotel quarantine workers, but not overall security workers. State governments have, in some limited instances, issued public health orders restricting unvaccinated workers from entering or leaving local government areas of concern to attend work, or only allowing authorised workers who have had at least one vaccination to work in authorised workplaces. So in only very limited circumstances will employers have the right to direct employees to have a COVID-19 vaccination, or even the flu vaccination for that matter. So we then come to the Work Health and Safety Act, and Section 19 of the Work Health and Safety Act specifically gives the employer the responsibility to have a safe workplace, have a safe system of work, eliminate risk. Now, to reach the point where an employer could be satisfied that a direction to vaccinate would be lawful and reasonable, it would be necessary to conduct a risk assessment of the work, the environment in which the work is performed, and the available PPE and risk mitigation factors. The Fair Work Ombudsman has provided a worthwhile profile of what might be the 4 tiers of risk, and they go tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. Tier 1, where there is a very high risk of being infected with coronavirus, for instance, in hotel quarantine, border control, and so on. Tier 2 would be where employees work in close contact with people who are particularly vulnerable to the health impacts of coronavirus. For example, employees working in healthcare or aged care. Tier 3 would be where people are likely to come in contact with large numbers of the general public in the normal course of their employment. Shopping centres, stores where they're providing essential goods and services, and those sorts of places. And tier 4 would be where there's minimal face-to-face interaction as part of the normal employment day, and that might be working from home. So using that as a guide to help you, if you choose to conduct a risk assessment to determine whether or not you're going to give a lawful or reasonable direction, you should be looking at those first 2 tiers. Tier 1 work and Tier 2 work. And you can go to the Fair Work Ombudsman's website to have a look at that. Or you can call me and we can have a discussion about how you might go about determining whether or not your instruction would be lawful and reasonable in the circumstances. But one very important thing to remember is that with all of this, you should be communicating with your employees and strongly encouraging everyone to get vaccinated when it becomes available to them. You should also be telling employees about the issues that concern you, your business, and what's happening in your organisation. So consultation is very important. And you will come across employees who don't want to get tested. And that's going to be an issue that may take you into the area of disciplinary action, perhaps even termination of employment. But before you make a decision to direct the employee to be vaccinated, remember, you should carefully consider the grounds on which you will rely for that direction. Does the employee work with people who would be vulnerable to severe health consequences? Does the employee work in a high-risk area? Is the vaccination essential for the performance of the work? Is there a genuine reason why the employee refuses to have the vaccination? How will the refusal affect the work, health and safety and responsibilities of the employer? And are there opportunities to redeploy the employee to alleviate those safety issues? You may be able to dismiss an employee for refusing to have a vaccination in very, very limited circumstances. But I would suggest that you wouldn't want to be the first one to do it. Leave it to one of the larger organisations. It'll end up being a case before either the Federal Court on discrimination grounds or the Fair Work Commission as an unfair dismissal. It's not worth the trouble. Talk to us before you do anything. Now, the second issue relates to casualisation of the workforce and the changes that have occurred as a result of the changes to the Fair Work Act and changes arising out of the High Court decision in the WorkPac versus Rosato case. Now, very simply stated, in WorkPac versus Rosato, lower courts provided the opportunity for an employee to have the 25% casual loading as well as accruing sick leave and annual leave under certain circumstances. The High Court has overturned that, and the federal government has made changes to the Fair Work Act to stop that double dip, what was called a double dip, the 25% loading and the accrual of sick leave and annual leave. But having made those changes, the Fair Work Commission now has to change modern awards to reflect the definition of a casual, what protections there are for employers against double dipping and so on. And that is taking place as we speak and will be happening by the end of September. So the things that you need to know are these. The new legislation regarding casuals commenced on the 27th of March 2021 and provide a definition for casuals in the new Fair Work Act. And that goes into the National Employment Standards. It provides a protection for employers against double dipping claims by casuals who claim that they've been misclassified or entitled to permanent employment entitlements. It provides the requirement for employers to give each casual a copy of the new Casual Employment Information Statement. And it provides an express obligation for employers to offer eligible casuals conversion to permanent employment while allowing eligible casual employees to make requests to convert to permanent employment as well. Now, the new legislation defines a casual in terms of what the contract says, not exactly what happens. So if somebody is offered a contract of employment on the basis that there is no firm advance commitment to continuing or indefinite work, and that person accepts the offer, the person is a casual. This means that the determination of whether a person is a casual employee or not will occur at the point of offer and acceptance of employment. And it's very important because that means you really need a contract of employment with written clauses that confirm that there is no firm commitment to continuing employment, no firm commitment to the number of hours or the number of days that an employee may be engaged for. In the event that a casual is in receipt of a 25% casual loading, and it's determined by a court that they're a permanent employee, then the 25% loading can be set off against paid annual leave, paid personal leave, paid compassionate leave, payment for absences on a public holiday, payment in lieu of notice of termination, and redundancy pay. Now, if you have a casual who has been full-time for 12 months and at least in the last 6 months has worked regularly and systematically, as an employer, you are duty-bound to offer them permanent full-time or permanent part-time work based on the number of hours that they've worked in that 6-month period. Now, if the employee rejects that, then fine, they go back to being a casual, and you've got to do this in writing so you can confirm it. If the employee accepts it, it'll be on the basis of whatever those regular days and regular hours have been. Now, you can not make the offer or you can reject a request provided there are reasonable grounds to do so. And those reasonable grounds will include whether or not you're going to be able to provide that continuing type of work based on what's happened in that previous 6 months. So if you're losing a contract, if things would change, if there will be irregularity in the work, then you've got a reason to reject an application for permanency casual conversion to permanency or permanent part-time. Look, that's a brief overview of what's happening in those areas. What you have to do by the 27th of September is make those offers of employment to casuals, and you really need to be careful about that. If you have any questions about that, you can contact me, chris@asio.com.au or ir@asio.com.au, and I'll be able to answer any of your questions and help you get set up for either mandatory vaccination or issues surrounding the COVID-19 restrictions that might exist in your state or territory, or casualisation, and any other issue that you've got in your workplace: unfair dismissals, rates of pay and conditions, interpretation of awards, and so on. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, for your industry advice and member support. It's certainly valued. If I could now introduce Dr. Gav Schneider. Dr. Schneider from the Australian Security Research Centre will provide an update on ASIAL Security 2025 initiative.
Hopefully by now, many of you are familiar with me, and if not, I'm Dr. Gabriel Schneider. I'm the CEO of the Risk2 Solution Group, but I'm also the project lead for ASIAL's 2025 Horizons project, which we are running through the Australian Security Research Centre. Myself and my colleague, Dr. Paul Johnston, have been working on this project since late last year, and it is almost at the point where you'll be receiving the project report and the summary to show you all the hard work and outcomes that we've achieved through the project. I think the challenge with a project like this is we're obviously trying to benchmark where the industry is at the moment, and then we're also trying to forecast where the industry is likely to be in 2025, or roughly 4 years from now. When the report comes out, for those of you who are academically inclined and want a lot of information, there is a lot of information obtained and available in the report, but we will also have an executive summary which covers the key high points, and a summary report which will make it a bit shorter and easier for those of you who don't like to read through all the detail. In essence, what we're going to be talking about is why is the industry so important? And our research showed us indicatively that first and foremost, it's important because of the economic contribution, flexibility and agility, our force multiplier capability. We're also a business enabler. For example, the events industry can't hold events without crowd controllers. And also we play a very critical role in national security and supporting national security. We also then ran a robust assessment of where the industry is now, because obviously if we don't know where we are, it's really hard to figure out where we want to be and how we're going to get there. To do that, we ran a series of research activities and put together a basic SWOT analysis, where we looked at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to the industry as a whole. These will be listed in the report, but just to give you an idea, some of the strengths that we have is our agility, our ability to be client and customer centric. We often are very innovative and look at solving problems in new and unique ways. And we also are a scalable workforce, as our COVID deployments showed us. We do have weaknesses, same as any other sector. And sometimes these are things like unrealistic client expectations, sometimes ineffective compliance enforcement, lack of a national regulatory structure, etc. There are many opportunities for us, okay? And those opportunities include things like adopting and integrating technology, okay, enhancing our frontline security awareness skills, and building on the capabilities of our already robust footprint. Needless to say, there are threats that will shape the industry, and many of these will be no surprise to those of you who've been in the industry for a while. Obviously, things like terrorism, cybercrime, activism, etc., form internal threats, but there are also key trends that we need to take into account. We've identified some broad categories of trends, but we've also identified some mega trends, things that are coming and happening overseas, which without doubt will affect our industry. And the mega trends include aspects such as increase in cybersecurity, touchless and frictionless solutions, increases in the capabilities of facial recognition, etc. And there's about 10 of those mega trends that we'll talk about. And we will then focus a little bit on some of the global issues, challenges, and opportunities that will shape the direction of where we're going. And these are integrating aspects of the SWOT analysis together with the mega trends and looking at what we can do to capitalize on what's happening around us. We also then create a picture of what good will look like. And I think this part is really important. Many of you who've been in the industry for a while are often frustrated that we don't seem to be taken seriously. But realistically, for us, good will look like the ability to leverage the real capabilities of the industry. And we've got a bit of an overarching statement where we talk about what will good look like: a professional and well-trained workforce that is respected for the important frontline role they perform in safeguarding the community, where nationally consistent licensing and professional standards are enforced and supported, and where there's a strong culture of compliance and governance with technological innovation and adaptability embraced. Now, a lot of that is easy to say. To achieve that will take significant work. And I think one of the things we have found is it's not just reliant on the provider companies, whichever specialization you may fit into, whether you are an electronic security business, an access control business, a guarding business, or even if you're in the cybersecurity field, it's not just going to be up to us who provide. There are certainly things we need to do, but it's also going to be a requirement for us to look at other stakeholders. So we will not get a high-performing, professionalized, robust security industry unless regulation, national consistency, and some of these things change. So we need the regulators to be involved. We need government to be involved. We also need clients and consumers to be involved, because if clients and consumers aren't applying the correct standards, moving with the times, and supporting the correct pay structures, etc., it will be a little bit more difficult to achieve our full potential. And ultimately, we see that ASIAL has the ability to be the enabler and the glue between these three structures: the providers, the users, the regulators, and government. And if we can get all of those acting towards a common objective, we should see our industry improve, grow, and take its rightful place as a serious contributor to the larger economy in Australia and a serious stakeholder in providing national security for all Australians. We look forward to you receiving the report and presenting it to you, hopefully face-to-face in November at the conference. But when the report does come out, feel free to reach out to anybody at ASIAL or myself and Dr. Paul Johnston if you'd like to know more. Thanks for listening to this brief update, and look forward to seeing you all face-to-face, hopefully soon.
Thank you, Gav. I'm sure we will see the Security 2025 initiative be the benchmark for the direction of our industry. I'd like to now introduce Brian DeCaires, ASIAL CEO, to provide a security industry update and give insight into the 2020-2021 ASIAL annual report.
Thanks for your participation at this ASIAL industry briefing. It's good to catch up with everybody again, even though it's in a virtual capacity. The past 18 months has been a difficult time for all of us, and we've all had to find ways to do things a little bit differently. But pleasingly, the industry has responded very effectively and innovatively in responding to the changing needs of customers. What I'd like to do today is run through a few issues and updates that may be of interest to members. And I'll make a start now with an update on the annual report that we've just released. As you know, the last year has been a little bit difficult. We've had to cancel a number of industry events due to the COVID crisis, but pleasingly, despite all that, the association has actually had a very sound performance over the last year. The annual report is now available to members to have a look at, but I thought I'd just run through a few highlights of the last year. As you'll see in the report, membership over the last year has actually grown by 4.25%. So we're now up to just under 2,750 members. We've also seen member engagement rise across a number of different areas, including access to documents that people have been downloading over the last year. People have been using the website, and we've also had more regular communication with members, obviously during the COVID period, with over 1.9 million email communications and close to 300,000 emails and phone interactions with members. We've also seen an increase in the reach, or the media reach that we've had over the last year, with a growing number of media mentions and a much enlarged total audience reach of some of the activities we've done. So again, if you read through the report, you'll see some of the activities we've done over the last year in terms of some of the media, including things like the 7:30 report and a whole range of different publications. So it's certainly an area that we've invested more resources in over the last year, with the appointment of an industry affairs officer to reach out and engage in a greater capacity with the general media. When you look at the performance at the end of the day, we made an operating surplus of 110,000, and with the revaluation of the ASIAL house, we've seen a much stronger return for the year. But all in all, the association has performed very, very well and is in a sound position. So please, if you can take the time, the annual report is available to have a look at. Just a few other things I'd like to touch on. The Security 2025 report, which will be out very soon. I would urge you all to have a look at that report. It will be available free to members, and it will include some comprehensive information about the state of the industry and where it's headed. So please look out for that report, which will be circulated to members very, very soon. Another area that we've been obviously encouraging members to do is to get their staff vaccinated. We made available to members a range of resources. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, I would encourage you to do so. The association position is that we would want members to look at the different opportunities they have to encourage their staff to get vaccinated. So again, please use those resources, which are available on the ASIAL member website. Another area that I'd just like to recognise is also the efforts of all those in the industry, both in terms of providers, users, and regulators in promoting International Security Officer Day. The event reached a potential audience of over 30 million, including articles in the publications listed on the screen, as well as tweets, social media posts by regulators, providers, customers, clients. The event was a great success. We will be doing the day again next year. So if you didn't get involved this year, please reach out to us to find out how you can participate. We will be sending out collateral probably earlier in the new year, but if you want to be involved, we encourage you to do so. Another activity which is coming up is the Australian Security Industry Awards. This year it will be a virtual awards, which will be announced on the 27th of October. It will be free to participate, but to register, you just have to go to the ASIAL website. And I again encourage you all to participate in that one. It's an important event for the industry, and it's important to celebrate all that's good about our industry and the excellence in our industry. Also, recently, the Australian Electoral Commission completed the ASIAL board elections, which were delayed due to COVID. As you'll see, a new board of directors has now been elected with John Gillell as president and Rachel Saunders as vice president, and the other directors are listed on the screen. The board has already got started in terms of the important work it has ahead, and you'll hear more from them over the coming months. Another area of concern for members has been the availability and affordability of insurance cover. In June, ASIAL submitted a paper to the Insurance Council of Australia, which is doing a review of this very issue. And we have been invited to participate with other key stakeholders to try and explore some of the opportunities available to make the cost impost of insurance as low as possible. And we will be in touch with members in due course once we have some responses on that one. As you would have heard earlier from Cara Pritchard, there are a range of government employer incentives for the technical security sector. So please follow up on the points that Cara addressed earlier, because this is an important initiative, and it's one of the areas that the industry needs to focus on, is upskilling staff, not just in the technical sector, but across all sectors of the industry. So please take advantage of those opportunities. Recently, you would have seen we circulated to member the revised monitoring centre standard, which is now closed. We're now going through the comments for that standard, and a final draft will be hopefully available by the end of the year. There's also a draft for public comment at the moment for security detection dogs. So if you have any views or you want to have some feedback on that, please go to the ASIAL website. You'll find a link to the draft standard where you can actually provide your feedback to that. And then finally, the Security Industry podcasts, we're now up to, I think the next one will be the 53rd podcast. The whole library is available, but if you haven't listened to some of them, please take the opportunity to go to the ASIAL website and download the podcast. Thank you all for your attendance this morning. I look forward to catching up with you all face-to-face in the not too distant future.
Thanks, Brian. Peter Johnston, ASIAL's Compliance and Regulatory Advisor, will now give a licensing update.
In South Australia, as an industry, we certainly have been luckier than other jurisdictions, particularly in Victoria and now in New South Wales. With a broad exemption covering safety and security work, it does benefit our industry in South Australia. However, it does not exempt us from compliance with requirements of COVID management plans, COVID safe plans, use of QR codes, masks as required, and space limitations where applicable. South Australia has approved a further 28-day extension of the existing declaration of a major emergency, and that extension was from the 21st of August. Please remember that all of ASIAL publications are not available to the public. Access to many publications can only be viewed if you are logged into the ASIAL member area on our website. The Federal Automatic Mutual Recognition of Occupational Licensing and Registrations, AMR, commenced on 1 July this year. This impacts upon individual licence holders only. At this stage, Northern Territory has introduced an AMR process that includes security. Victoria, New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory have declared a 12-month delay for the introduction of AMR. All other jurisdictions are required to introduce a legislative process for AMR to apply. Consumer and Business Services have published information relating to AMR that includes security and investigation agents. Dini may be able to further assist us in this area. ASIAL continues to receive communication relating to unlicensed security operators in South Australia. ASIAL communicates with these situations with CBS to encourage their investigation and action, although legislative interpretation can maintain grey areas, particularly in the area of selling and marketing of security activities. We will certainly continue to monitor this area. Thank you, Neil, and I'll be happy to assist with questions.
Thank you, Peter, and all our speakers. We'll now have a Q&A.
I guess the guardhouse, and we go back to Jack and Julian in relation to guardhouse. Does guardhouse integrate with MYOB, and what packages do you integrate with that? I guess, Jack, you're there. You may be able to assist with that one.
Morning, guys. Great to see you all again virtually. Yes, we do integrate with MYOB for both payroll and invoicing. We also integrate with Xero for payroll and invoicing as well. So Guardhouse will calculate all the invoicing information and payroll information, and that can easily be uploaded into MYOB and Xero to run those two processes.
All right, excellent. There's got one coming through that this one, Dini, it's one over to you, and the automatic mutual recognition. Now, I know that you do have some information on your website. You haven't made any comment at this stage. Where are we at with AMR in South Australia?
Sure, thank you for that, and thanks for the question. So the status at the moment is the bill has, so I'll go back a step. Commonwealth have commenced automatic mutual recognition, and as Peter mentioned, a number of states have commenced. Most states have deferred implementation for probably 12 months, which would take it to 1 July 2022. In South Australia, or certainly from a CBS point of view and for security particularly, we are pretty much ready to go. The status is that in South Australia, we have to introduce legislation to enable automatic mutual recognition. That bill was introduced in the last sitting a couple of weeks ago, and then we anticipate that it'll be debated either this week where Parliament is sitting or the next sitting, which will be in about 2 weeks. So at the moment, we're pretty much ready to go. We're just waiting for that bill to go through the parliamentary process. Then a date for proclamation will be set, and that may be 1 December or 1 January or whatever date that may be, depending on the parliamentary process. So it's still got to go through the lower house and then up to the upper house. Sorry, it got introduced in the upper house, then it's got to go to the lower house to get passed. So that may take some time to get passed, and then we'll have a commencement date from when people can come into South Australia under mutual recognition. They will have to notify. So there'll be a process which we've developed where people can online notify us that they are coming into South Australia to operate. We'll then automatically send out some information to them to say this is what the obligations and requirements in South Australia. We will add them to say the South Australian Police is monitoring for any offences that may occur in South Australia, and commence from there. For people travelling interstate, they're probably going to have the same process, but from South Australia, but we'll need to wait for those other states to commence their automatic mutual recognition provisions. For some states, that'll be sooner. Some states, won't be till July. So it's really checking the website of those other states. In the meantime, people can still apply for normal mutual recognition and get licensed, but to get the advantage of not having to pay a new license fee in another state, it's waiting for those states to commence their provisions to do that. It is an odd time to introduce automatic mutual recognition when most of the borders are shut down, I suppose, but we are obviously we've got some time to get ready under those circumstances.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Denny. It's very interesting in relation to the automatic mutual recognition, and I guess from a security industry point of view, we've been talking to regulators right around Australia, of course, and we get the feel that some regulators will be actually trying to get a longer extension because of variations in probity, variations in individual entitlement to hold a license. So do you think that when introduced in South Australia that maybe security may get an exemption, or you're quite confident that South Australia will run with the federal intention of automatic mutual recognition for individual licence holders?
So yeah, in South Australia for security, and in fact for all the licences that I regulate, we will commence once the bill is passed and proclaimed. But again, that means that people can come from interstate under automatic mutual recognition and operate. We won't be looking for any further exemptions or extensions to the exemption process through there. So we're pretty much ready to go, and we'll proceed. South Australia does have probably a higher bar in relation to security probity assessments than some states. So we'll need to obviously look at what that means from our point of view. We have to work with each home state to understand whether there's any concerns in relation to the conduct of that person within their home state, and vice versa. So we'll be working fairly closely and looking at systems to share information between the regulators. But from a South Australian point of view, we'll be ready to go once the bill's proclaimed, once the act's proclaimed.
Yeah, excellent. And I know this is not in your area, but firearms licensing, I believe the regulators in the firearms licensing in Australia will also be trying to receive a delay in that. I guess in some respects we can understand firearms licensing under a automatic mutual recognition process may raise some concerns. But I guess from an industry point of view, we will try to keep people up to date. There's one question, and thanks, Denny, certainly appreciated. There's one coming through in relation to, and this is Leanne and Cara, and with Mass National, and really from Neil's point of view, I know Neil's been pushing this, and certainly one that we need to be mindful of. To be crass, it's a bucket of money. The thing being is, we as an industry in the technical area don't know how to use it, and we need organisations like Mass National to make sure that we don't abuse it, but on the other hand, make sure we gain access to it. So one of the areas in relation to Leanne or Cara, the technical training sounds too good to be true. So what's the catch? Where are the choke points in relation to this?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's no actual catch. So the Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement Wage Subsidy is a first of its kind. Obviously, we've all heard the words pivot and all those words that have come out of COVID, but this is one of those initiatives that has come out of COVID really to support employers to upskill their staff, attract new staff, and obviously keep businesses moving forward. So really at the end of the day, we have a whole team across the country to support you. So you don't just dip into that bucket of money and grab it yourself. We actually work with you to make sure that it's tailored to your business and it suits your workforce development needs. We are the ones who have to follow all the compliance with the government. So we do all of that work in the background and pay that subsidy to you as the employer. So really what we'd say to the employers on Zoom is to get in contact with Leanne and I. We've actually already had quite a few employers reach out from the last session we did the other week. Get in contact, we will have a meeting with you, learn about your business, learn about your business needs, and then put forward suggestions around appropriate qualifications and pathways for your business, and then talk you through the subsidy and exactly how it works.
Yeah. Excellent.
Sorry,
I think
was
in
a
relation,
long-winded answer to your question.
No, it's look, we understand that people always think when there's money, there's a catch. The thing being is, you just got to get off your backside and do it. And we know Neil is very passionate with the technical training in South Australia, and Leanne. The thing being is, if we've got employees that actually fit the criteria, let's take the opportunity and educate our industry. And as you said before in your presentation, it's not just entry-level training, it is certificate 4, it's diplomas, and we're moving into other areas, into the technical areas, into the communication areas, and this is where training can take place, and Mass National can certainly assist there, and certainly Neil is available in South Australia for everyone to rattle his bucket as well, and I'm sure together we can get an opportunity, and really it's supporting our industry. We're always complaining about not getting people in the door. Well, this way we can get people in the door and train them and retain them with some financial support. So certainly appreciate it, and we encourage everyone to do it.
I'll just add another thing there. I'm actually based in South Australia as well. Yeah. And on top of this particular subsidy, being the Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement Wage Subsidy, we currently have a minister who is very pro apprenticeships and traineeships, be that Cert 2 through to Advanced Diploma. And there's currently also state government funding under what's called a Skilling SA project. So on top of this subsidy, you can also concurrently receive subsidy through the state government, and there is also a payroll tax exemption. So without sounding like a used car salesperson, there's never actually been a better time to be looking at apprenticeships and traineeships. Leanne and I have been doing this for over 35 years collectively, obviously, because we're quite young, but we are here to support you through that process.
Yeah. No, certainly appreciate it, and we just encourage everyone to do it. And I know it's one of Neil's passions. There's one that just come back from Dinny that may be able to assist. The cost in relation to it, we know there's an answer here, but Dinny, just in relation to your process for AMR to be introduced, there's no cost associated with this. That's where the variation to the existing mutual recognition program, this AMR is different, and the cost factor is that it's been removed from the individual. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So AMR has a normal AMR has a cost, and you get a license. Under this process, there'll be no cost.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I guess here we go with Chris and a message for a question for Chris in relation to the casual loading. And you know, if a person is getting 25% loading as a casual, are they still entitled to holiday and sick leave loading? Chris, can you put a nail in that one for us?
Yeah, certainly, Pete. If the employee is deemed by a court of competent jurisdiction to be a permanent or permanent part-time employee and not a casual employee, the employer has the opportunity to set off the 25% loading against any decision to award accrual of sick leave and annual leave. But if you get yourself into that situation and you've got a demand for both, it's a very good idea to come to us and we can walk you through the whole thing and sort it out for you. But simply stated, no double dip.
All right, excellent. Now, Jack may have dropped off, but there was a question in relation to when any of the new guardhouse features may be coming on board.
So the new features that we've got coming out that Jules mentioned, so staff compliance upload, so they'll be able to manage their own compliance documents. We're aiming on a September 9 release for that one. The second part is welfare checks. We're also expecting a September 9 release for that one as well. So the welfare checks will be part of that, which we're really excited to deliver to the market. And then the labour partner sharing, where we've connected guardhouse accounts together for the share of labour. And that's going to be about a month or two away.
And certainly contact Guardhouse in relation to that, because with all the difficulties of our compliance in our industry, it's a very demanding compliance industry sector, and Guardhouse with their programs can certainly assist there. And also there was one other area in relation to Guardhouse, in relation to work health and safety. Some of the Guardhouse programs can certainly assist and link in and meet our work health and safety compliance requirements. So get in contact with Jack or Julian in relation to Guardhouse. Very important to ensure that we maintain compliance in relation to that. I guess another one there, Chris, just will there be any further changes to casual and casualisation legislation? What are we looking at? Anything else that's going to come and annoy us?
Not at this stage, Pete. The Fair Work Commission is going through all of the 122 modern awards to vary the awards to meet the requirements of the legislation. Some have different definitions for casuals from what the legislation has. The security awards are up in around the end of September. So there'll be some minor award changes there that should not affect employers dramatically. But one thing I would say is that if you've got casuals, there are two things that you really should be doing. The first is you should have a contract of employment with them that clearly states that there's no promise of continuing employment, and you can come to us for that. And the second is that you must give casuals a casual employment information statement, like the information statement that goes to full-time employees on commencement of employment. So no legislative changes to the award.
All right, thanks very much. There's a question in relation to an interstate operator, e.g. from New South Wales, will have a financial advantage over an operator as in South Australia. How will you address this? I guess this one is really around that automatic mutual recognition. Denny, I guess in relation to that, if mutual recognition is introduced into South Australia, that will enable any individual to take advantage of that from another jurisdiction. Do you see that as going to create one of a advantage for other organisations, or what are the challenges for you in that regard, do you think?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I'm not sure if that's making reference to the fact that the licensing costs in different states may be different. Again, it's important to note that this only applies to individuals, not to companies, from a licensing point of view. So if they are either an individual security guard, agent, etc., who is licensed as an individual, or they're a sole proprietor, but the mutual recognition or automatic mutual recognition doesn't apply to companies. So that's one factor in relation to who's going to take it up. And the other aspect is that it is for doing work here, not to move to South Australia, for example. If you change your principal place of residence, then you need to get licensed in your new state. But there isn't going to be an adjustment of licensing fees as a result of AMR.
Right. I guess in regard to that, it may be, and some people have raised this in the early discussions of AMR, is that an interstate organisation, in response to a major event in South Australia, instead of engaging people, licence holders in South Australia, could, in theory, bring in a busload across the border for the event under AMR. Is that something that may create a little bit of an anxiety for some in our industry, do you think?
I mean, I certainly think there is issues in potential for that to occur. I think what currently is the situation is that people need to apply under mutual recognition to operate in South Australia, get a license and go through that process. The bar to entry is the same, it's just that there's a cost obviously associated with being licensed in South Australia. So that is removed. And I think there is a potential that there will be competitive issues in relation to people bringing their own workers across for specific events. But again, this is a proposal for workforce mobility by the Commonwealth, and that's the idea behind it. And in theory, it can work both ways, I suppose. So yeah, that is certainly
certainly true. And when another jurisdiction opens up AMR, that means a South Australia individual could go and work in another state in relation to another opportunity or event. We understand there's going to be challenges, and I do believe that there's going to be a SURF meeting in the near future, which is the Security Industry Regulators Forum. And I think there probably some of these things may be discussed there, and we just wait and see. But it is a federal initiative, and as you say, it's a federal workforce initiative, and we're just seeing how jurisdictions are responding to that. So Jenny, thanks very much for that question without notice. Another one on MAS National, and Cara and Leanne, it's I guess with everything, it's I guess how much do anyone pay MAS National for providing this opportunity and training? Is any other costs associated with that to the employer?
Thanks, Peter. No, there's not. We're a free service. We're funded by the federal government to promote apprenticeships and traineeships to employers and to apprentices and trainees, obviously. So we're all about sort of education and information to all stakeholders. So essentially, if you want to get in touch with us, we do all the background work for free, the workforce development and the sort of the training needs analysis, I guess, and work out which qualifications best suit the business. And then we also organise the funding. So we pay out the funding to the employers as well.
All right. Excellent. I guess in one other area, because it is important, and in the technical area, we as a security industry, we don't have apprentices. And so the thing being is, if an organisation doesn't employ an apprentice, that's where your support and ability to understand how traineeships work, and in similar point of view. So is there a difference there, or they all get put in the same bucket in relation to the funding program?
Yeah, so I think it's a huge myth that people think that apprenticeships, they think, oh, we don't employ apprentices in the traditional sense as far as plumbers and electricians and stuff like that. Traineeships attract the exact same funding under the Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement Wage Subsidy, and there are over 500 different qualifications that can be done at a traineeship. So I guarantee that every employer on this Zoom would have someone in their business that would be able to undertake a traineeship relevant to their job role, whether that be business, certificates, cybersecurity, there's management certificates, there's ICT certificates, there's cabling, security, there's really
even
so
contact centres, Cara. We spoke to somebody yesterday about their contact centre.
That's a really good one, Leanne. Contact centres, lots of businesses will have a bunch of people who are taking the phone calls. There is a customer engagement certificate. So we need to move away from the traditional sense of what an apprenticeship is and start looking at traineeship opportunities to upskill our staff and create pathways for those staff. So you could have entry-level people undertaking Certificate 2 or 3 qualifications. You could have existing workers undertaking Cert 4s through to so there is a lot of opportunity. Again, we sit down with you, we'll take you through how that works and work out what the appropriate qualifications are for your particular.
Excellent. Look, I had the privilege many years ago in another life in security when I came out of a policing role that got involved in traineeships in the security industry, more in what was now therefore known as the manpower area. Now we call it protective security. And we introduced that. So it is a program that can assist businesses and can assist the individual and upskill the individual to further support the individual and support the business as well and our industry. So I only encourage people to really get involved in that. Further in relation to that, there was one, and thank you very much for that. There was one area in relation to Guardhouse where they have a mobile app, and certainly from that point of view, they do. Any other one else? Any other questions? We can get onto the chat box. All right, there's nothing there, and I do apologise if you can hear a bird talking in the background and whistling. Chris knows it's an annoying bird in the back of my office. But I think that brings us towards the end, and I do appreciate everyone's attendance. Certainly from that point of view, naturally we can't go past sort of thanking our sponsors in relation to Jack and Julian in relation to Guardhouse. Very much appreciated. In relation to the presentations, Cara and Leanne, I know you've been dealing with Neil in South Australia, Leanne. The thing being is it's extremely important. It's an opportunity. We should take advantage of that. And I do thank you very much for your presentation. And Dinny, we always continually thank you for your support. You've been associated with us for many years, and we've seen your climb through your journey in South Australia. And we certainly still appreciate how you in your position still give time to support us, and we really appreciate that. And we can't go past our solid Chris Delaney, who keeps us on a straight and narrow in relation to our IR and workplace relations. We certainly also thank Gav for his support in providing that Security 2025 investigation process. Is really important and something that will be important for the future of our industry. Brian de Carey's naturally from our CEO's point of view and the annual report. And certainly, I just thank everyone in relation to attending today. I know it's your time, but the thing being is, we're only a phone call or an email away. There are a lot of resources. There are a lot of people, as we can see, that presented today. We are there to assist our industry to grow, and we certainly thank you. And Neil, thanks very much, and certainly thank you for your passion in relation to the technical sector and getting us associated more closely with MAS National to try to actually give us an opportunity to further advance our technical training for our industry. So thanks very much. Thanks for the ASIAL team in supporting this presentation, and wish you all well in our future endeavours. Hope we continue to improve in our COVID situations. Hopefully we get our industries open more, our borders open, and we can certainly enjoy and in the future meet face to face. So thanks everyone for attending. I really appreciate it. Stay safe.
Thank you all.